Hey guys, welcome back to the next episode here in Sports Talk with Hawk podcast. We are doing part two of the way too early look at the 2025 schedule. Now, for those of you who are wondering how the schedule works, please go back and listen to part one, which is the AFC. I explain how the NFL schedule is created and how the opponents are determined at the beginning of that podcast to lay the foundation. This one, we're just going to jump right in. We have the NFC to get through, and we're going to jump straight into it. I liked how long that last podcast is. That is the time frame I want to get these podcasts down to. When you got that 30-minute commute into work, I want you to be able to listen to a full podcast episode and not have it go over. That is my goal, and that's how I'm approaching these now moving forward. So here we go. 2025 opponents, home and away for each team. Now, for just a snippet reminder, remember I do not name the division opponents. I just say division opponents, home and away, because you play all of them, home and away in the division. So just that snippet. Remember, for all the other, guidelines and how they figure out the schedules, please go back and listen to part one. All right, flying into this one with the Philadelphia Eagles, who won the NFC East. They have their three division opponents home and away next year. They also have home games against the Bears, the Lions, the Broncos, the Raiders, and the Rams. That Lions-Eagles game is going to be big. Don't know what's going to happen in the playoffs. Potentially the Rams-Eagles game could be big. I don't know. Depends on what happens in the playoffs. But not a bad home schedule. Not a bad home schedule at all. The road schedule is at the Green Bay Packers, at the Kansas City Chiefs, at the Chargers, at the Vikings, at the Bills, and at the Buccaneers, who seemingly have their number in a sense. Excuse me. So that road schedule is a little difficult. Excuse me. I've got something in my throat. Hang on. Take a swig of root beer and try to get whatever it is in my throat out. All right. Like I was saying, that road schedule, that's a little tough. That's a little tough. I don't see them going for 14-3 again. Definitely don't see them going 14-3 again. But we'll see. We will see. All right, the Washington Commanders, picked by yours truly to make the playoffs. People thought all of us that picked them were crazy, which weren't many of us, but you thought we were loony. Turns out we weren't. We knew what we were talking about. They have their three opponents in the division, home and away. Then they have home games against the Bears, the Broncos, the Lions, the Raiders, and the Seahawks. Not a bad home schedule. Not a bad home schedule. Honestly, the two I'd be worried about most are Denver and Detroit. And Denver, that's going to be a matchup between Bo Nix and Jaden Daniels. I like it. I like it. Their road opponents are going to be the Packers, the Chiefs, Chargers, Vikings, Dolphins, and the road game against the Atlanta Falcons. Penix versus Daniels 2.0. I like it. I really do. They play Caleb Williams, Bo Nix, Michael Penix, and depending on what Minnesota ends up doing, maybe J.J. McCarthy. I like it. I like that schedule set up for next year. Absolutely looking forward to those matchups with the young quarterbacks. Dallas Cowboys, not great home attendance. Well, what could you be missing if you don't show up to a Dallas Cowboy home game next year? A shellacking by the Packers, the Chiefs, the Chargers, the Vikings, and the Cardinals. Yes, I did just automatically assume they were going to lose. Listen, you put these outdoor teams in a dome. A dome isn't always an advantage for the home team. Sometimes it's an advantage for the road team because they don't get to play on that AstroTurf all the time. I know it's not AstroTurf anymore. They don't get to play on that field like that all the time. Indoors, no issues. It helps them just as much. That's not a good home schedule for the Cowboys. Their road schedule, they're in Chicago, in Denver, in Detroit, at the Raiders, at the Jets, and at the Panthers. They're staring down the barrel of a 6-11 season, at best. At best. All right, here we go. Giants finished last in the division. Unfortunately, I don't think that changes because I don't think they can get, unless the Browns bulk and the Browns go Travis Hunter or Mason Graham on the defensive line, unless the Browns bulk and do not pick a quarterback, I don't see the Giants getting much better. They have home games against, obviously, home and away games against their division opponents. Then they have the Packers and Chiefs at home, the Chargers and Vikings at home, and the 49ers at home. They then have road games against the Bears, Broncos, Lions, Raiders, Patriots, and Saints. Unfortunately, not looking all too promising. All right, the Detroit Lions get the number 1 seed in the NFC, and this is their opponent schedule for next year. Home and away games against their division, and then they have home games against the Cowboys, the Giants, the Steelers, the Browns, and the Buccaneers. That's a pretty good home. That's a good home schedule. I see them going undefeated there. Then their road schedule, a little bit tougher. At the Ravens, at the Bengals, at the Eagles, at the Commanders, at the Chiefs, and at the Rams. Wow! That's a really hard road schedule. Even for as talented as the Lions are, you get 3 of those back to back to back. That's a hard road schedule. I'm not wanting to play that road schedule. They will not be, I'll say this now, they won't be 15-2 next year. That is a really, really hard road schedule. Wow. Many of those games are going to be prime games too. We got a lot of great games next year, guys. A lot of great games. I can't wait for this. All right, the Minnesota Vikings finishing second in the division. Their home and away opponents, obviously, their division opponents. Then they are home against the Ravens, the Bengals, the Steelers, the Commanders, and the Atlanta Falcons. They then have road games against the Browns, the Cowboys, the Giants, Pittsburgh, the Chargers, and Seattle. Honestly, it's not too shabby now, depending on what happens with Brian Flores, depending on what happens with J.J. McCarthy. Is he ready to be the starting quarterback? I do. I know coming into the year, I doubted the Minnesota Vikings. Sometimes you get lucky. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm sorry. Brian Flores had that defense with B players playing at such a high level. I don't see another defensive coordinator that can imitate. Maybe Sala could imitate it, but outside of Robert Sala, I don't see another defensive coordinator able to imitate the success that Brian Flores did. The schemes. I really like Brian Flores to be able to be like a D'Amico Ryans now. I think he's learned the excitement I saw in that game when they beat the Packers. You know, take away the Darnold issues. His defense played well against the Lions. Think right now I think he can pull it off like D'Amico did in Houston. I can't wait to see. I think if he doesn't end up somewhere, it's a travesty. He deserves another chance of being a head coach. Now, if he ruins this one, he's a defensive coordinator for his career. That's what he'll be. He will be a defensive coordinator. But he deserves a second chance with everything he's admitted. And because I think he's gone, I think the Vikings take a step back in that schedule. You know, kind of middle of the road. So we'll see how they fare next year. All right, the Green Bay Packers. 3 division opponents, home and away. Then they have home games with the Ravens, the Bengals, Eagles, Commanders, and Carolina. I like that. You get all those games at home. And then you have road games against the Browns, the Cowboys, the Giants, Steelers, Broncos, and the Arizona Cardinals. So not bad. Not bad. If Jordan Love can just cut down on how often he decides to be Brett Favre, he doesn't have that from the public. Let's put it this way. He doesn't have from the public that benefit of the doubt yet that it's not just him being dumb with his throws. Since he doesn't have that benefit of the doubt, he needs to cut down on the turnovers and be a little bit safer. LaFleur's given him enough leash to go play football the way that Brett Favre just slung it around. He was a gunslinger. Jordan Love is very, very much a gunslinger. And I think at this point in time, he needs to be a little less on the sling and just needs to show that he's got the gun and he knows how to use it correctly. I really think that's where we're at. All right, the Chicago Bears. Home and away against each division opponent. Then they've got home games against the Browns, the Cowboys, the Giants, the Steelers, and the Saints. For a brand new head coach coming in, a roster that is not horrible. This roster is not horrible. That's not a bad home schedule for a first-time coach. Definitely got winnable games on there. I'd say the main one I'd be worried about would be Pittsburgh because of their defense. But Browns, Cowboys, Giants, and Saints at home, I think those should be 4 W's. This team is talented enough. Absolutely talented enough. So we'll see what happens. Their road opponents are the Ravens, the Bengals, the Eagles, Commanders, Raiders, and 49ers. That's going to be tough. That's going to be tough. Home opponents like their shot of getting 4 or 5 wins. Road, they may only get 2. They may only get 2. A 7-10 season, though, I think would be a success. I do. I really believe a 7-10 season would be a success and would give you something to build on for the future because you finally played football again. Okay, here we go. The NFC South. Starting off with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They get their 3 division opponents, obviously, home and away. Then we have home games for the Buccaneers against the Cardinals, the Patriots, the Jets, the 49ers, and the Eagles. That's a really good home schedule. My gosh, is that a really good home schedule? I could easily see them winning 4 of those 5. Easily. I could easily see them winning 4 of those 5. Philadelphia, I'll say, is a toss-up, but the rest of them, I'd say they should win. And I know people are like, well, hold it, you keep discounting the 49ers. Absolutely right, I do. If they're going to sign Brock Purdy to a big deal, we don't know what's going to happen. This is before the offseason even gets into full swing. Brandon Ayuk off of a bad injury. The defense is getting older. Trent Williams is getting over. McCaffrey can't seem to stay healthy now. He's done so much, but he's falling apart, literally falling apart. His ankles are now done. They're getting older. They need to be bad next year. Get a top 10 pick. They hit on their picks. Get a top 10 pick. Retool again. Get rid of some of these bad contracts. Have a down year, legitimate down year. You know, the window's not open right now. You've got young teams. All right, we'll talk about the 49ers when we get down to the 49ers. How about that? We'll talk about them when we get down there. All right, the Atlanta, let's see. We still need to do the road games. The road games for the Buccaneers are at Buffalo, at the Rams, at the Dolphins, Seahawks, Texans, and Lions. So they really need to win their home slate because their road slate doesn't leave them a lot of wiggle room. 10-7, 9-8 year is basically what it looks like again. All right, the Atlanta Falcons. Here we go. Home and away against the division. Then you have the Bills and the Rams at home, Dolphins at home, Seahawks at home, and the Commanders at home. Well, at least you got them at home. Miami, I'll give you. Seattle, I'll probably give you. I don't think Seattle's going to improve that much. Geno Smith, to me, is too much of a wild card. So I'll give you those 2. Buffalo, the Rams, and Washington. Ooh. Those are going to be tough. Now, it does mean, however, that you've got road games against the Cardinals, the Patriots, the Jets, the 49ers, the Colts, and the Vikings. It's manageable. Very manageable. Depending on how you play. You got a shot. And you're going to have to take it. All right, the Carolina Panthers, I'm excited for what they're going to be able to do. I'm optimistic if they spend more money on the defense this offseason. But they need a defense. They got their home and away games in the division, and then they play at home against the Rams, the Bills, the Dolphins, the Seahawks, and the Dallas Cowboys. They are playing on the road against the Cardinals, the Patriots, the Jets, 49ers, Jacksonville, and Green Bay. Not every team can win, and that's the hard part. You know there's going to be teams that win 5, win 6. The next year could be a year where you've got a bunch of 5-win teams again. You may only have 1 3-win team and 1 4-win team, but you could have 4 5-win teams or 5 6-win teams. I think next year is going to be very competitive, especially with the coaching changes that are going to take place. Some rosters are getting old. If we got time, we'll go over that at the end. Just the overall look of what 2025 could look like. All right, the New Orleans Saints. We know they'll have a new coach. Here's the schedule he will have to deal with. They have home games against the Cardinals, the Patriots, the Jets, the 49ers, and Giants. That's a damn good home schedule to come into. That's a damn good home schedule to be able to open up with as a head coach, a brand new head coach. The Patriots is going to be tough. In a dome, the toughness will be able to come out a little bit. I like it. But that's a schedule you can live with. You can win with. Which means they've got road games against the Bills, the Dolphins, the Rams, the Seahawks, the Titans, and the Bears. That's going to be tough. They are also in cap hell right now. Literally. They need to get rid of some of the older players. They need to trade away some of the older pieces. Just get what you can. Get 4th round, get 5th round picks. Make some moves to get younger because this isn't going to work while you're old. Get out of the contracts. Look at that coach. Sean Payton did it. Look at that coach square in the eye and go, listen, we're going to have a dead cap year, which means I'll have money next offseason for you to build this team the way you want to. We don't have it now. Work with what we've got. Play around with what we got. You'll have money next year to build this team. We just don't have it this year. We've kicked the can down the road too long. We've got to have it circle around so that we can attack and start trying to win again. I have no problem with this. The NFL salary cap is set up to where this happens. It's a hard cap. There's rules and different things you can do to elongate payments and everything else. Well, guess what? At some point, and it happens for everybody, at some point, the bill comes due. Because you can't just keep pushing it down the line, you'll run out of money. The Saints are at that point. They need to get rid of contracts. They need to dump dead cap. They need to have 1 year. Brand new coach, tell him, you're playing with Derek Carr this year. You're playing with Kamara. You signed him for 3 more years. You're playing with Kamara. This is kind of the team you got. We're going to draft and develop your other guys as we draft. If we trade away, we get picks. We're going to use those picks on guys to develop, and we're going to see how many we can hit on. And if we hit on 10 out of 10, great. If we hit on 5 out of 10, all right. But they need to have a year where they can regroup. They really do. All right, the NFC West. We'll talk about the 49ers because that's going to be a big topic this offseason. So here we go. Los Angeles Rams, home and away, division opponents, as usual. They get home opponents against the Texans, the Colts, the Saints, the Buccaneers, and the Detroit Lions are all at home for the Los Angeles Rams. Which means their road opponents are then the Falcons, the Panthers, Jaguars, Titans, Ravens, and Eagles. Not going to lie. For a young defense that's just going to be better next year with Chris Shula in year 2, they're paying nobody on defense. If they can go get, who doesn't want to play with this defense? Who won't want to play with this defense? I think they're able to be smart. If they make a big trade, it depends on what Stafford does. I will say that. It depends on what Matthew Stafford does. If they win the Super Bowl, I'm saying he'll retire. For sure. If they lose early, I don't know. But I'm saying if they win the Super Bowl, I think Stafford retires. But this defense is fun. It's electric. You believe in everybody on that defensive line. I'm excited for next year. That's not a bad schedule for a team that's just going to be better than what they were this year, barring what happens with Matt Stafford. All right, the Seattle Seahawks, home and away against their division, and then they have home games against the the Texans, the Colts, the Saints, the Buccaneers, and the Vikings. Not the easiest, but not the toughest, kind of middle of the road. Their road games are then at the Falcons, at the Panthers, at the Jaguars, Titans, Steelers, and Washington. Kind of a middle of the road schedule all the way around. Mike McDonald should be able to get 10 wins out of that team next year, even with Geno Smith as the quarterback. Defense in year two, especially if everything it does. I think the defense definitely has potential, and I really believe in what they're going to be able to do. So there's the Seattle Seahawks. Arizona Cardinals, home and away opponents against the division. Then they have the Falcons at home, the Panthers at home, Jaguars at home, Titans at home, and the Packers at home. Not bad. If Gannon can just improve again, but he's got to finish. Got lucky in the last week. That works, or they would have ended up 7-10 when they had the division lead. That doesn't go over very well. Their road opponents for the Arizona Cardinals are the Texans, the Colts, the Saints, Buccaneers, the Bengals, and the Dallas Cowboys. Little bit of a tougher road schedule than home schedule. So we'll have to see how 2025 plays out for them. All right, the San Francisco 49ers. You've seen me kind of assume that they may lose a few games throughout this. They're older. Greenlaw's been injured. They have some young stars on the defense. Devondre Campbell walks out on them. Deebo Samuel is more of a gadget than he is a number one receiver. Brandon Ayuk coming off of a bad injury. Brock Purdy potentially getting paid millions of dollars. McCaffrey cannot stay healthy. Trent Williams now, I don't know if he wants to keep playing. If he retires, it's a big hit for them. I just feel now's the time to be bad. I feel for them kind of the same way I feel about the Browns. This year's the year to be bad. The Saints, this year's the year to be bad. You're not prolifically like the Browns. I know we made fun of them for years. The Browns haven't actually been bad for a little while, guys. I don't think we realize how often the Browns haven't been bad. Okay? That's something like everybody's like, well, they're the Browns. They haven't been bad. Okay, they got the number 2 pick in the draft. They haven't been bad for a little while. 49ers definitely haven't been bad for a while. Okay. The Saints with Dennis Allen, I said wasn't going to work. I was right. They weren't bad with Sean Payton. So this is the year, I believe, let contracts roll over. Let the contracts roll over. Get rid of all that dead cap. You cannot win truly in this league with a bunch of dead cap. You can compete, i.e., Broncos, Chargers. You can compete with some dead cap. You can't win with dead cap. You won't have enough guys. The 49ers home and away schedule for next year. Obviously, 3 division opponents. And then their home games are the Falcons, Panthers, Jaguars, Titans, and the Bears. Favorable. Yeah, but you got to have the team that can play against them. Their road games are against the Texans, the Colts, Saints, Buccaneers, Browns, and the Giants. I think they could go 6-11 next year. Depending on how that offensive line does, because I think the offensive line is not as strong as what it was. And I think right now you're looking at that team wondering what their identity will be in 2025. Like I said, if I was teams right now, I'd try to trade for Shanahan. I'd be like, I'll give you a first this year. I'll give you a first next year. Give me Shanahan and give me one of your old players that are going to be on a 1-year deal. You know, a team takes Debo and Kyle Shanahan, clear up some cap space. They're going to have a little bit of dead cap. There's a lot of different options. I can't wait for what's going to happen in this off season. I think it's going to be it's going to be interesting, and I think it's going to shock us the level of mid-level talent, or the amount of mid-level talent that will be moving. That's what I see. That's what I see. The talent that you need to have on your team to win a Super Bowl. But nobody's going to be expecting to make that play. And I think that's what's important. It could be a really interesting offseason. So there you go, guys. There you go. Home and away games for everybody, 2025 season. I can't wait. Thank you guys so much for listening to part 2. Make sure to subscribe, like the video, like the podcast. And I don't know what tomorrow's episode is going to be because these are all pre-recorded. So, whatever tomorrow's episode is going to be, hope you guys listen in for that. Until next time, guys, for Sports Talk with Hawk, I am Hawk, and have a great evening.